Everyone, it's truly a pleasure to welcome all of you to the next powerful conversation that is focused on leadership, service, and transformational impact. We are joined by three trailblazing women whose work spans governance, healthcare, and advocacy, and who also embody the power of purposeful leadership. These female remarkable leaders exemplify courage, innovation, and service in their respective field. Each of them have shaped policy, inspired communities, and led with clarity in terms of both opportunities and challenges. Let me introduce our distinguished panelists. First, I want to bring on Secretary Kelly G. I have the pleasure of working with Secretary G. I've seen her great work. She is our Secretary of the Commonwealth of Virginia, whose career spans legislative leadership, public policy, and executive governance. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Apurva Ramaswamy. She's a physician, surgeon, researcher, and also an advocate who champions patient-centered care and brings a deeply human approach to medicine and public advocacy. Last but not the least, Secretary Sharini Patibanda Sanchez. She is the Secretary of State for Elevate that Aruna Miller was talking about, a leader whose work in law, land use, and state governance has broken new ground in inclusion and administrative reform. Before we dive into the discussion, I would like to invite all three panelists to briefly share their opening remarks. I will start with Secretary Kelly G. We'll move on to Dr. Ramaswamy and then Secretary Sharini Patibanda Sanchez. Secretary G.
And to be a part of this esteemed group of women. Events like today showcase that empowered women can and should empower other women. It falls on all of us to lift up the next generation of females leaders. March, generally celebrated as Women's History Month in the Commonwealth, is about celebrating women, honoring your achievements, and recognizing the resilience and strength it takes to make the impact that all of you do on your families and communities and workplaces every day. I have been a female in a leadership role for about a decade now, and what I have learned is that women are naturally good leaders. We show up to work with empathy, we show up authentically as ourselves, and with a level of self-awareness that makes us good managers and good executives. And when I was a young executive, I naively thought that because I sat at the head of the table, I had to know the most. And that very quickly paralyzed me and humbled me. And I've learned over the years that my success is measured by the success of those around me. So surround yourself with people that make you smarter and challenge you and share a commitment to excellence. And today is a perfect example of that. Thank you for having me.
Marks.
Hi. Hello. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I am so honored to be here with you, this whole panel. It's been so exciting, this whole journey for us, our family. So a little bit about myself. I am a physician, surgeon. I'm a throat surgeon at Ohio State. I treat patients who have swallowing disorders. It's an extremely underserved problem. I'm one of very few people in the world, in fact, who do this because of historically, we just have not paid attention to quality of life and these issues in patients. And this has been something that's been a huge loss for so many of us who, if you think about what we do when we're in the holidays, when we spend time with our families, it's usually to sit down to a delicious meal and talk to our families. And those are the problems that I have the honor of treating for my patients who've often gone through cancer and all kinds of other health problems and now are unable to eat, unable to communicate with their families. And at the Ohio State, I am able to treat our patients and often get them eating, get them communicating again. When I was a child, I'm also an immigrant. My family moved from Kanpur, India when I was 4. And we came to this country. My father's also a surgeon. We came to this country with the philosophy of you keep your head down, you work hard, and with those kind of immigrant mentality, you can get ahead in this country and make a difference. And that's really been the case. This country, the United States of America, has given us so much in terms of being able to accomplish, not just as immigrants, but for me as a woman, being able to accomplish so much in just a few years. That said, I think the mentality of keeping your head down and doing what you need to do has kind of blinded us over the years from the things that we need to do. Sometimes we need to look up and see what's going on around us and make a change. And I'm so honored. My husband, Vivek Ramaswamy, has really opened my eyes to that need in so many ways over the course of our time together. We're celebrating our 10-year anniversary this year. And what I've learned from him and from the journey that we've had as a family is that you really need to be able to look around and then make those changes, because those changes will affect you, your family, the people you love, the people you care about. So if you're not able to make those changes as immigrants, as people who come from different backgrounds, that's our responsibility as Americans, just as much as anyone else. And so I'm so proud of the people who are on this panel with me who have done that in so many different ways. And I'm so excited to be able to speak to everyone.
Swami, coming from a rehab medicine background, I really know what you do. I think I know, and I know how much patients appreciate your services. Let's move on to Secretary Panda Sanchez, another pioneer right now, another trailblazer for us. Secretary, your opening remarks, please.
Thank you so much. Namaskaram, everyone. Happy Ugadi, Eid Mubarak. I was so honored to be invited to speak today and to be referenced by Lieutenant Governor Miller. Like Lieutenant Governor Miller, I'm also Telugu. I was born here in the United States, but my parents are from Hyderabad, and I'm the proud granddaughter of two grandfathers who really, I think, are the inspiration for my public service. Dr. A.S. Rao, who founded the ECIL company in Hyderabad, is my maternal grandfather, and Dr. Madhava Patibanda, who was a Telugu scholar, is the father of my father, and actually wrote a book named Charani, and I was named after that book, never having received the opportunity to meet him as he passed away before I was born. So I do think a lot about my grandparents and their struggles in India, and use that as my inspiration for service. I'm an attorney. I was born and raised in the great state of Delaware. My parents immigrated to Delaware from India by way of Indiana, actually. And then I went to Los Angeles and practiced law. I was in land use and administrative law and government affairs attorney before returning home to Newcastle County, where I was born and raised, to serve as the economic development director. And in that role, which was actually, I came back to Delaware during COVID, we were really struggling to help our working families that were shut out of jobs. We were trying to help mothers who were scared to seek healthcare for their children because of the risk of COVID and other diseases. And I had an opportunity to work on a nurse family visiting expansion in Newcastle County, where we used federal dollars that came from the Biden administration to expand the opportunity for mothers to receive nurse home visiting. These are essentially Medicare mothers or Medicaid mothers who are living in poverty, and they would have access to a free nurse who would come to their home and do checks on their children, as well as themselves, to make sure that they were doing well. And these are evidence-based, outcomes-based programs that we were trying to expand in Newcastle County, because as the economic development director, we know that women contributing to our economy is really the backbone, and we must empower women to be able to care for their families and work when necessary. I then had the honor of being appointed by Governor Matt Meyer to be Delaware's 81st Secretary of State. And today, on International Women's Day, I'm one of 3 women who ever served in that role, and I'm the first Indian American to ever be a Secretary of State in Delaware. So I'm incredibly proud to to serve in this capacity and represent my community as an appointed official in the state of Delaware. We have been working hard to, you know, combat some of the challenges that we're facing right now, but all with the eye of service and bringing resources and aid and help to our most deserving and underserved population in our state. So thank you so much for having me.
I mean, I think everything you said resonated, especially the service is really resonating to me here. So let's go ahead and begin by exploring the early sparks that led each of you to where you are today. I am sure there were tons of paths that you had to take to get where you are at this point. Let me start with Secretary G. Secretary G, I've seen you over the past few years. You've served across multiple branches of Virginia's public sector. You went to the legislative halls. You were at an executive leadership helm. What catalyzed your interest in public service, and how has those diverse experiences shaped your approach to leadership?
Thank you for the thoughtful question. I know exactly where I was when I got this inclination that I wanted to do public service, and I've just crossed the 15-year mark of serving as a state employee in some capacity or another. I was in it was my intro to government class when I was in my first year of college, and the very first day of class, the professor named Dr. Love, you'll never forget a name like that, walked us through how every aspect of your life is controlled by the government. I mean, the food you eat, the roads that you drive on, what you're taught in schools. I mean, zoning and building codes, like literally every aspect of your life. And I felt really compelled in that moment that I wanted to be part of the conversation, not just oblivious to kind of how government was going to impact my life every day. So that's what got me into government. And since I have stayed, I truly have found my why. And I think one of the earlier speakers mentioned this, when it's not what we do, it's not how we do it, it's why we do what we do that help us thrive and succeed. And I feel like serving as a public servant and in state government, I'm in a position to bring government to the people and to allow individual citizens to be change agents to better their communities, to drive societal outcomes through policy and rulemaking. And so I truly feel like I'm trying to make government for and of the people.
Thank you, Secretary G. I think you very well said, if you are not going to be one of those influential or decision maker, you have to be on the menu, just kind of watching what's going on and how your water is getting polluted, but what are you going to do about it, right? So it's great that you're in your position. Let me move on to Dr. Ramaswamy. Dr. Ramaswamy, you know, in American Telugu Association, Mr. Challa mentioned several of women are in the leadership roles, and actually several young women, as you know, in our communities, want to get into medicine path. So a lot of them are listening live feed, I can tell you that. So I want to know your journey in medicine. I mean, it spans from prestigious academic institutions and clinical innovation. I'm sure a lot of Indian American girls dream colleges, right? But my question to you is, what initially drew you to a life of service in medicine versus just being a doctor? Because you're just not that. You're always talking about service and advocating for everything. How has that evolved through advocacy and leadership?
I think I learned a lot from my father, Ashutosh Tiwari. He's actually a urologist. He treats prostate cancer, and he's the head of urology at Mount Sinai. And he has been a trailblazer in so many ways. As an immigrant, he was trained in India and came to the United States. And I think some people on this call probably know what that's like, to have done a full residency and fellowship in India, then came here and did it all over again. He did all of it. He did a fellowship as well as residency again in the United States. And he then went on. He was fortunate. Bhagwan put him in a place where he was part of the first robotic prostate cancer surgeries in the country, in the world. And he is now a world leader in that. And as I grew up, I never saw someone who loved what he did more than my father. And despite everything that he went through, such grueling training, raising 2 children on a resident salary, going through everything over again, he was just in love with what he did, and the honor to be able to treat his patients. And that really inspired me and what drew me to medicine. I, because of my parents' hard work and a lot of luck, was able to go to some great institutions, as you mentioned. I went to Yale for college and then medical school, and then went on to residency at Columbia Cornell in New York City. And then I did my training in throat surgery at UC Davis in California. So it's been, a long journey of training, certainly, to get to where we are. But I think what I would say to students or early trainees is that it's very much worth it. Medicine is still, despite everything, just an amazing field. It's a great way to earn money. We all have to, but to be able to do that while getting an intimate relationship with your patients, while being able to help them in some small way and make someone's life better and be part of such an important part of their life, is such an honor. And I feel really blessed that I've been able to do that. And I think that's something that can be discouraging when you're at the beginning of it, thinking about all of the trials. And the best thing that I can say is it's worth it. You have to work hard. But it is I think it's one of those fields where I feel like I'm close to one by doing it.
Thank you, Dr. Ramaswamy. Having a role model is so essential because you see and learn from them. And that's what we try to do with American Telugu Association. You not only have a role model in the homes, but you also see these role models like you all out in the public. It only inspires our women and girls in the community. Let me move on to Secretary Patibanda Sanchez. I'm glad you spoke about your background, but I'm curious to know your background merges like legal, local, now statewide governance. Was there anything that inspired your commitment to this kind of public life? And do you have a leadership philosophy that developed over the years as a female through these transitions of legal, local, and now statewide?
Yes, thank you so much, Srilekha Garu, for the question. I do remember when my interest first peaked in public service. I was about 10 years old, and my father was, took me to a rally for a presidential candidate that was coming through Delaware, which is rare because we're a small state. And I was so inspired by everything I watched on TV that year and everything that was happening in our country at 10 that I told my dad, I want to go into public service someday. And he said, okay, that sounds okay, but maybe you should pursue becoming a doctor first. I think a lot of our South Asian parents encourage us to go to medicine. And sadly, I did disappoint my family a little bit by pursuing law instead. I was a economics major at the University of Southern California, and I also took a law and economics class, and that was really the intersection between the law and efficiency and doing things with an economic standpoint. And that class really inspired me to go to law school. So I did work before going to law school, and I think that working as an analyst and just having a job right out of undergrad is very important to having a holistic view of why you want to be a lawyer. I think that can help focus you as you pursue your higher education. So yeah, it was really as a 10-year-old that I thought, I want to do this. And then I thought, well, if I ever want to run for office or make laws, I should probably understand how to write them. And that's why I went to law school. And then I actually started out as a litigator for a small law firm in Los Angeles. And I didn't exactly plan for that to happen. I actually graduated in 2011 during a difficult time in our economy, and it was a difficult time for lawyers to be hired. And so, I took I had passed the California bar, so I took the job that I could get. And but before taking that job, I was actually lucky enough to get an internship with United States Senator Chris Coons. And that internship really showed me that public service was where I wanted to be. But like many other students, many maybe that are listening, I had student debt that I had to pay back. So I went to work as a litigator for about 2 years. And then through networking and, connecting with others, I was able to get a job in land use and local government issues in Los Angeles. And as you all know, Los Angeles is the second biggest city in the country, and so local government is, sometimes national government over there. So I got a firsthand look at how policies were affecting regular people living in the city of Los Angeles trying to make a living. So we did a lot of work related to housing and homelessness. We were representing clients that were trying to build projects like housing, hotels, and things like that that would offer good jobs to the community. And so with that kind of economic development in mind, I thought, well, this is something I really want to do in my home state. But it did take me a little bit of time to be able to get back to Delaware to serve. I was lucky enough to stay in touch with Senator Coon's office, and Delaware is a small state. We all are connected. We're a state of neighbors. So I always just stayed connected to my roots, and eventually the then county executive hired me to be the economic development director, and that was my ability to come back and use all the skills that I learned as a land use attorney and professional in Los Angeles back in my home state. So I'm really proud to be able to have worked on so many initiatives to help strengthen quality of life for our neighbors in Delaware.
Thank you, Secretary Patimanda Sanchez. I think one of the things that you mentioned, stay right to your roots, right? And also keeping up with your network. I mean, you had great relationship with Senator Coon, so you kind of nourished that. I think that's something our women and girls especially has to keep hearing that over and over again, creating the good network, good people network, and ensuring that we stay in touch with those good people. Will kind of get us somewhere. And it definitely has worked with you. And I'm sure your parents are super proud of where you are, even if you're not a physician. So ladies, each of you has led through so much of complexity to get where you are. Sometimes I think it's often in systems, they're not built with women in mind, right? When these systems were built, sometimes I also get into a situation, I said, did you ever think of women and girls? But Dr. Ramaswamy, I will go to you with question in both medicine and public engagement. Did you encounter any cultural or institutional barriers that you faced as a woman in leadership? And if so, how did you cultivate that resilience of long hours, trying to balance everything? How did that process go for you?
Well, for what it's worth, I know I mentioned having to work hard as a trainee in medicine, but the hardest job I've had is being a mom of two boys. I think that is a full-time job, and nothing is more emotionally and physically exhausting than that process, especially in the first year. So I do think that, yes, a lot of the pathways to get to accomplishing things are difficult, especially in medicine, but I don't think that they are insurmountable. And in some ways, at least for exposure and the things we need to do in medicine, I wouldn't cut down much more than we already have. That said, I think being able to incorporate being a parent in your work is difficult for everyone. And I think that that's been the biggest transition, and the thing that we're trying to understand how it can be translated for everyone, not just people who can afford to have nannies and lots of help in multiple ways. At one point during my, the last 2 years, I was supposed to operate the next day. We have 4 nannies kind of rotating all the time. And yet, despite that, two were out sick. One was getting married, and the other one had another event out of town. And we were literally left the night before with no one to take care of my kids. And that's one of those things that it's, whether you're a woman or a man, taking care of children is very difficult while having a job. And, thank God my husband's parents were able to drive from Cincinnati. Someone else was able to come meet us at 5 a.m. before I had to leave for work. But that's difficult for everyone. And being able to make systems that are resilient to two people in a household having jobs while being able to have a family are so essential, because women need to be able to work. I think we've demonstrated over decades and decades that we have so much to contribute, and having a 2-income household means that someone needs to be able to be there for the children. And that's something that we as a society really need to help manage. And there's so many thoughts on how we can do that, but that's been the biggest, I think, if we're talking about systemic issues with being a parent and a leader, that would be the one. The other one that I would point to is, again, childcare over the summers. We have entire months where our children who otherwise have great childcare have nothing. And if you think about systemic barriers for especially a single woman or someone who is trying to raise their children alone, how can you do that when you have childcare only for a certain amount of time and then you have to find that money to be able to engage them? And that leads to a lot of learning loss, has been demonstrated so many ways, learning loss and inequality. And how can we fix that is really, I think we as a society, Democrats and Republicans, have to contend with.
Kind of said all the issues in such a tangible manner, right? Like having 4 babysitters. So you thought you had safety net, but sometimes I think as women and girls, we are faced with we have the safety nets. We are able to afford certain portions of it, but when things fall apart, we still need to have that nice supporting structure. That's I think. Thank you for highlighting that. I tell all my girlfriends saying that you will only get somewhere when you have a support system. It could be parents, it could be friends, it could be neighbors, but build that network. Because no matter how accomplished you are, you still have practical things like affordability, taking care of babies, babysitters not coming in. What do you do with them in summer, right? Thank you for highlighting the practical aspects. And thank you for highlighting the support system importance. So, Secretary Pachibanda Sanchez, let me go to you. You are the first person of color to hold the office. Your visibility brings both opportunity and pressure too. I know folks think that's a great opportunity, but I also say it's a lot of pressure to be that first, right? Because now people are looking up to you, women and girls are looking up to you, especially in our communities. What systemic or cultural challenges have you encountered because of that? Even if you did or you did not, we would love for you to talk us through what guided you through those pressure moments.
No, thank you for the question. So first, I want to acknowledge that being a child of Indian immigrants, I was incredibly blessed by parents who did not struggle so much economically. They came here for more opportunity. My parents are both retired now, but she was a pediatrician, my dad was an engineer at DuPont. And so we were a very average middle class family. We did not want for anything, went to public schools and then went to high school in a institution called Tower Hill, which is a private school in Delaware. So growing up, I didn't feel disadvantaged when it came to education at all. But I will say that as a person of color, as someone who is not white, when I went away to college and started to work in the profession, I found myself to be the only person that was not a white male in many, many, many conference rooms. And that just being alone and feeling alone can be marginalizing. And I may have had a great idea, but I wasn't sure I could share it because the room was filled with men who were intimidating and probably were discounting me just because I was a woman. I was often asked if I was in the room because I was an assistant or a secretary to my boss, and instead of being his associate. That's very common. I think that happens to all women at some point in their professional lives. And that's difficult because after so many years of school and training, it's very, it can be demeaning to be referred to as something that, not that there's anything wrong with assistants and secretaries, are incredibly important to our jobs, but after training and being assumed that you play that role because obviously you're a woman, that can be hurtful at times. But I think for me, resilience is, you know why you're in this field. And that's the advice I would give to young people who are, especially who are looking to do public service. Know why you want to serve. Have that in mind, because it's that when you wake up every morning, you tell yourself, okay, what am I doing to achieve a goal for that community or that person in mind? And that's how you structure your day, and that's how you stay grounded, and that's how you stay strong in the face of adversity. So for me, I wake up every morning and I say, the taxpayers of Delaware pay my salary. I have to earn it. I have to do something good for them, and I have to provide for the families that are counting on us. And yes, it is a lot of pressure to be the first Indian American and first South Asian and first person of color and all these things. I think what helps me get through that pressure, because I do want to be a good role model for all of our young women, especially, and young brown women especially, that I don't want to be the last in this role. So that really is important to me, to make sure that many, many women follow me, and that we nurture them. When I was in my roles in Newcastle County, a young woman came up to me, a young Telugu girl, actually. She was a junior in high school, and she asked me to be her mentor, and I did not hesitate. I said, of course, absolutely. Let's touch base. We had a great meeting. We keep in touch. She'll send me things. She has a great career path that she wants to pursue. And I always just remind people, get your degrees, get trained, do well, make money, do everything you can, and then come back and serve. Come back and serve your state, come back and serve your community. It's the most fulfilling work I've ever done. And I encourage everyone to try and serve at least at some point in their life.
Yeah, no, those are some wise words, Secretary. I know that I even in medical field, I love my nurses and everything else. But I'm the director of my the center, and when folks say I'm the director, they repeatedly ask me saying that, but who is over you in this department? I'm like, nobody. That's me. So I think it takes a while for folks to realize that. We are there because of our capability and stuff. But again, for overall, I think it's a super welcoming, a super supportive environment is what this great country provides us. But that little bias that you say, you look at female doctors and they call them nurses, no offense, but they went to 14 years of schools to be a surgeon. Let's be respectful of that education and so on and so forth. So I think a lot of us can resonate, but thank you for providing the solutions of how you came up with. Let me move on to Secretary G. Secretary G, I see you. I mean, I kind of semi-work with you. I see you in multiple roles, but not a single moment when you come to us with meetings or agenda, you come across as though you're very busy. But we see you with governor, we see you in the field, you manage 7 advisory board and another 70 more jobs. So when you're navigating so many roles across government policy, what challenges you face as women leadership, even if you do, because just because I say you face leadership, I mean, sometimes maybe you as women, you may not specifically face anything, but I would love to know, how do you stay grounded amid these competing priorities? I'm sure you get 200 emails a day. So how do you do that? So how do you stay grounded?
Well, thank you. And this is actually a really wonderful opportunity to say Srilika, Dr. Pillai has been, I mean, just an amazing friend of the Youngkin administration. She has stepped up in such a meaningful way to chair our Asian Advisory Board, which is no small feat. And she's truly helping us make inroads with the vast Asian American community. So thank you for helping be a good partner in all of this. I'm not without my struggles, and I'm gonna lean a lot on what Dr. Ramswamy was saying about being a mother and being a professional. When Governor Youngkin called me into his office to ask me to be Secretary of the Commonwealth, which is the equivalent of Secretary of State in Delaware, I hesitated for only a moment because I'm going through a divorce and I have my kids every other week. I've got twin boys that are 4, and I was really worried that, every other week when I have to leave in time for daycare, or if they're sick and have a fever, it's me that has to be home with them, that was going to inhibit me from doing this job to the best of my abilities and to what it deserved, right? To the level of capacity it deserves. And I'll never forget that moment. And this is a sign of a good leader. He just very calmly said to me, "It's okay. We want you. We will make it work." And we need leaders in our workplaces that recognize that we are all humans first. We have family that we have to care for, old and young. We have neighbors and personal, passions that also need to be a part of our lives. And so navigating kind of the personal life and the executive life has been an interesting time for me. Also, Madam Secretary, I also wanted to say here a little bit about what it means to have a seat at the table, which you just talked about. When I was early in my career, and I think we all know politics is sometimes political atmospheres can be this way. I was often the only woman in the room. A lot of my rooms were dominated by older males, and I'm a young female working in politics, and I never wanted to be in the room because they needed the woman's voice. Like, that's not why I wanted to be there. I wanted to be there because of merit, and my ideas and my contributions. So while I want to be there on merit, I also think it's incumbent on all of us to not be blind to building a table that looks like the diversity of America. And so we can do that in a thoughtful and meaningful way without diminishing somebody to a singular gender or a race. So.
Secretary Jay, very well said. Thank you. Thank you for those thoughtful messages, and thanks for your great work to this great Commonwealth. I will wrap up by asking one last question to all three of you, the same question. And I would like for Secretary Patibanda Sanchez to go first this time. Is there a core message or piece of wisdom do you hope the audience that are listening, especially women and children, carries forward from today's conversation? I know you guys, through just your journey of life and the way you all answered, if I could have a pen, I would just start jotting down. But I know I'll go back and review this conversation again, because there are so many things that I could just take away as a practical tips. But is there a core message or piece of wisdom as your closing remark you would like our women and girls to take this message from today's conversation?
Thank you, Sheila Gagaru. I don't know if it's wisdom, and first of all, Madam Secretary G, thank you for what you said too. I think you hit it on the head over there. You don't want to be in the room because you're a woman, and you don't want to be feel like you're just being asked because of that role. But I can tell you and everyone listening that you deserve to be where you are. It's not because you're a woman, and it's not because you're checking a box for somebody. So first of all, Madam Secretary, I hope we can collaborate. Virginia and Delaware are so close to each other, so I'm looking forward to working with you. But I would say that and to that point, that your voice and your experience matter, and that when shared with others is going to help make the world a better place. I think that would be the advice that I give to anyone listening, that your experience and what you went through to get to where you are means everything, and it makes you who you are. And that perspective that you have to share to another room, whether it's filled with people who look like you or not, will only make the ideas that come out of that room better. And that's really what I've experienced. When I do find the strength to open my mouth, I feel like the end product is always better than where it started, because you're giving your perspective, and that turns out to be a perspective that so many others share. You may not know it at that time, but it's true. So thank you for everyone that tuned in and watched today. And if any of you are in Delaware and want to come learn about how to serve Delaware, please do reach out to Department of State. We look forward to having you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Secretary. I say past experiences are just right to move forward. We learn a lot from past experiences, just like the way I call it as history, right? I learned that from Mr. Ramaswamy, history. Lots of his wisdom is what I sometimes translate in my message. But thank you, Secretary Patibanda Sanchez. If you don't mind, stay on for another minute or so. We would like for Mr. Challa to come in, and thank you all as well. Now I'll move on to Dr. Apurva Ramaswamy. Dr. Ramaswamy, we would love to hear your pulse of wisdom as a closing remark.
I think if I'm to give practical wisdom to some of the younger people on this call, it is echoes what's already been said by the Lieutenant Governor and the Madam Secretary, that it is so important. What you have to contribute is essential. All of us have an important gift that we have been given by God, and it's our job here while we're on this earth to show the world why, again, we have been put here and what that gift is. And that's, the most practical kind of advice. But the other practical advice I would say is that you have to pick who you share that life with. It is so, so important for us to have a community of parents, friends, spouses, everyone around us, mentors, who acknowledge that we have something important to contribute and are able to help us to achieve those goals. So those would be the two most practical pieces. First of all, that you deserve and need to be at the table. And second of all, that you need help and a community in order to express all of the amazing things that you are in the fullest manner possible. Again, thank you again for having us.
Thank you, Dr. No, thank you, Dr. Ramaswamy. Support and network. I mean, I think you said it a couple of times, and that's a truly pulse of wisdom, especially for first-generation immigrants and second-generation immigrants, right? Until they kind of build that huge network, it's important to have their support system to succeed. Secretary Kelly G, again, saving the best for the last. Go ahead, Secretary G. What are your closing remarks for us?
Thank you. I want to throw two pieces of data into the conversation that I think are going to round out what we've all been saying, which is that girls right now are in sometimes at a disadvantage. That 57% of U.S. teen girls report feeling sad or hopeless. And sometimes there's been data to show that there's a little bit of a gap in confidence between young boys and young girls. And I think it just, again, is incumbent on us to be examples and role models for our next generation of leaders. And I think the best way to do that is to lean into their talents and to do these types of events year round. And just remember that I think they really need a hand up in today's society to know how special they all are.
Thank you, Secretary G. I know Commonwealth of Virginia does this STEM for Goals, where I try to grade those essays and stuff as a program for just encouraging STEM for Goals. So you're absolutely right. I mean, you just need a little hand up to kind of get where we are. So, I mean, on behalf of everyone here, I cannot even thank you enough for your time, insight, and most importantly, your unwavering commitment to public service and transformational leadership. I have followed all three of you for quite a bit, and I know you guys you ladies are very busy, but taking the time to come to the panel, I can tell that you brought a unique and powerful lens and also rooted in lived experience, like Secretary Patmanda Sanchez said, but also medical excellence and a deep belief in the power of women to shape the future of our communities and the country. I can also tell you that reflections not only enrich today's dialogue, but I'm sure in the future, whoever listens to this panel, you will inspire each of them to lead with integrity, act boldly, and also think bigger. I mean, how can we have a lieutenant governor, 2 secretaries of Commonwealth as females, and an amazing surgeon that went to school for 15 years, staying rooted in advancing our medicine and innovation. Thank you for your candor, your courage, and your service to this beautiful country. We are better because of your voices, and I'm proud that I'm a fellow woman just like you trying to get through in the community. To our audience, both in person and online, thank you for being here. Your engagement, curiosity, and thoughtful participations will make this conversation even more rich.